Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone around the world. I'm Paul Sisler, and this is In the Moment. Today, our segment is the Vellum with TPA Wolfric. And today, we're going to kind of discuss settings and changing the narrator. We're going to talk about setting personal goals and, how we do this while we write. So these are the things that we're going to discuss today. In the outside world, I don't know how many have been watching this whole Speaker of the House thing, but when will it ever end? We'll be able to make a whole movie out of this pretty soon. So, anyways, hello, Teepaw.
Hey, hey, how you doing?
Doing pretty good. Doing pretty good. Trying not to get too caught up in all this uh, congressional drama, but it's kind of hard to do when you're a political person. So,
Yeah, yeah. I've been watching some of them go back and forth with each other on Twitter actually, because I think it was Dan or someone else that's on Twitter was like posting parts of the bill that was submitted to Congress to get approved for the 1.7 trillion dollar bill, and he was pulling out different little screenshots from the bill and explaining it in American English, not in like government English, but like American English, what parts of it look like. And like and then they were going back and forth on what the Speaker of the House would be. And I'm like, why don't you just like alternate? Like choose like six Speaker of the Houses and then just go, who's gonna speak on this bitch? Just like shuffle. It's like turn into an iPod shuffle or something, like shuffle between your tracks and like, oh, flavor of the week is this, oh, flavor of the week is that. And then like cause like what are the exact roles of the Speaker of the House again? Do like just like sit it and they show up to the thing and then they like speak on topics?
well, the speaker actually controls what bills get brought to the floor. So,
Okay.
so it doesn't matter how. It's just like when Pelosi was Speaker of the House, for a Republican to be able to get a bill up onto the floor was next to impossible. Well, now that we're going to probably have a Republican Speaker of the House, the Democrats probably won't be able to get a bill up on the floor. So again, it's who's swinging the biggest. You know what is all it
Just
comes
just
down to.
just grab the janitor. Grab the janitor or someone that like is totally neutral and has been watching these guys cockfight for like, years, decades, and
Yes.
like be like, okay, what's this bill? What does it mean? Okay, we're gonna bring this bill. What's this bill? Wait, that's not for our agenda. Ooh, who gave a shit about your agenda? We're Americans. And then just like start
Yeah.
like introducing different bills and like have no fucking like give no fucks about like what side you're on, like whether you're blue or red or green or orange, and just be like, and they're like, who the fuck are you? I'm the janitor in this bitch. I've been cleaning up after
So
your messes for like
that's
decades.
that's why I want to eliminate the political parties. If you eliminate the political parties, then things can be. I think things would be better if you eliminate the partisan bullshit. But hey, who am I?
It's
Anyways, on with the show.
well, I'm chaotic as it is, like when it comes to storytelling, when it comes to like anything and chaotic neutral. So like, I'm there for my friends, there for my family, there for you, there for like my Twitter peoples. But at the end of the day, like when it comes to like governing a house or doing legislation and you're doing like a Speaker of the House type thing, like depending on what power the speaker actually has and depending on what power you give them, like it could be anybody. We just sort of have made that role more important than it probably already is. And so that's why I was making my sarcastic commentary on that role. Which is funny because we're going to be talking about roles a little bit, talking about setting, talking about, switching heads and the emotions involved. Like, because like me, I went ahead and I was writing part one. I was writing part chapters from it, right? And that's the character that I'm writing from is a prince. And so, in relation to our topic from government, he's a prince and he's supposed to be the future king, which is like president or whatever. And then you've got Sam or Trinity, which is our next head, which is part two. She is not even royalty, but yet she's supposed to be the supernatural entity that is reborn. And with part three, we have Sam, who's a princess in her kingdom. So in the Shadowfang world, you've got your legislative bodies, you've got your government and stuff. And so when I'm like writing from that perspective, I'm switching heads and stuff. I'm like, so this character is not even like government related. Okay, so that's fun. And then when I'm writing other government stuff, I'm like, okay, wait a minute. So what is their role in this government, and what are their powers, that sort of thing. So when we're talking like Speaker of the House, and we're talking president, talking about other than, we're talking about United States stuff, which everyone tends to get emotionally invested in it, which is fine. But at the end of the day, we're going to be in a forever tug of war over who thinks who's right. And so that's why I was like, just grab the janitor. Like, grab someone that like has been cleaning up that chocolate milk or that beer or whatever the heck they drink, that's been cleaning the bathrooms, that has no actual skin in the game, that like has no actual agenda, who's like, dude, I've been cleaning up your guys' messes for like decades. So now let's go ahead and pull out some bills that you guys have been writing. Like, and then like he pulls out this $1,000 bill and goes, this thing's supposed to like cost $1 trillion. Like, okay, let's shave off half of it. Let's take the most important things that are in this thing and then talk about it. It's like, then you're supposed to do the whole thing. It's like, no, it's just piecemeal. Like, you guys can never agree on anything anyway. I've been watching you guys for decades not agree on anything. Why don't we just like take the parts that are most important, throw that in, and then the next session throw the less important parts that are actually pretty vital, throw that in. So when I'm talking about like settings, you're talking like you're in this giant building with a giant body, 500 people plus more. And then, when you're switching narrative, you're switching back and forth between guy who's like in his 70s or 80s, who's serving as the president. Then you've got this other person who's the vice president. And then you got the speaker person. So you got point of view differences. What are your thoughts on all that?
Well, I mean, take like Rainbow Prophecy that I'm writing and all that. I'm doing it in first person, and I start out with Iris as obviously the main character, and then we bring in Donovan. So now you get Donovan's perspective. I mean, at first it's just Iris talking about Donovan, okay?
Yeah,
and describing him, blah blah blah. But then she is basically unconscious, so now Donovan becomes the next perspective. So as I go in and I have more characters, I now have more perspectives coming in. This is all in first person, so it gives different points of views. And as I think I was discussing it with, maybe it was either you, Luke, or Cornelia. I have a little diner scene that I think I'm going to include 3 perspectives of one scene in there: one from Donovan, one from Iris, and one from the waitress, to kind of give a how people view things and the perceptions of how things are. So it's going to be like a comedic, action, exciting, aspect of the story that's going to give more in-depth guidelines to, or more in-depth knowledge to who these people are and how they're seen by other people, So
how very Twin Peaks of you.
yeah. And that's why the waitress view is so important, because it's how she's viewing the people from the outside versus how they view themselves, So, and we're talking vampires, druids, the second coming of the Frost, Jesus, I mean, basically it's it can be interlocked politically and all that. The vampires are Republicans, the druids are Democrats. I mean, all of this, when you're hearing the story, you start to pick up on different things. So, and again, however you write a story and you use your characters and you transition from, either a narrator or, in my case, first person who's telling the story. Well, like TJ, that's third person narration. And I have 2 narrations on it. One from what is present day, which is the future for us, and then coming back into the past, which would be way in the past, the narration and all that. And the narrator is actually the same person, but in given it from two different eras, because one is like a virtual a VR system where you're watching and viewing, and now the story is being told, and it's almost like you think TJ is narrating it when it's actually not TJ. Okay, so after a while, you're going to pick up on it's one person actually narrating it and talking about the past and where we are now. So again, narration is huge. Changing the perspectives. Changing narrators outside of my first person aspect where it goes from character to character. I haven't really done that in third person yet. I don't know if I'm going to or not. I don't know.
I've done that with Peter. I've done that with Trinity now, and doing that with Sam. And it's so interesting how like I go from Peter, who's kind of like he's my aunt called him a self-insert, which is not entirely wrong because his parents are definitely inspired by mine, and like elements of my family is in there, but like there's enough difference between the characters and me that it's not entirely a self-insert. But it is definitely interesting going from Peter, the quote unquote self-insert, to Trinity, who uh, we spend the body of her story, at least for this first episode of her story, part 2 of Night Terror Rising, which is just giant volume arc, doing the question of identity. It's a who am I? It's a who am I in this world where everybody that recognizes me, that knows me, that is adult, that isn't a teenager, sees me as this person who lived in an entirely different era, because Trinity is technically a reincarnation of somebody else. And so when I'm switching heads like that, I'm going into this other person's perspective. And so I like your whole diner reference you did there, because it reminds me of Sandman, which there's an episode of Sandman where we spend the first half of the episode alternating between the waitress, the customer, and then one of the fellow other customers, and then we also bounce to the guy that's behind the he's in the kitchen, he's making the food, and then you like slowly start to find out just how dysfunctional and fucked up everybody is in the diner, and how this one guy that is there, who's one of the customers, he has this magical object that is getting them to all be more honest with each other and not cover up their intentions or cover up their thoughts with the white lies that we tell ourselves to be more secure in our life. And like it was such an interesting, haunting episode. And so when you're saying you're going to be bounced between perspectives in that diner scene, that sounds exciting, because it sounds like you're going to take a very neutral setting that is like warm, or it could be cold, and you could introduce dysfunction, you could introduce friendliness, and you can introduce a giant mounting tension that is rising throughout the story. And it's switching between their heads to show you just how fucked up this world actually is, where it starts out nice and friendly. Because diner scenes usually start friendly. You walk in, you're going to go to order food, depending on who you're with, depending on who you're talking to at the diner. It can either stay neutral and cold and distant, or it could start to get more personal and start to get more warm, or it could become more deadly, or it could become more conflicting because of the emotions you're trying to bury, you're trying to not have, because you're trying to enjoy yourself with the hard-earned money you're about to spend on an intimate thing like food. Like those are just some things that I like to think about when I'm writing my own stories, because it's like Peter himself goes from workplace, where he's with his friend and he is at the joint, which is technically a job, and then he is being asked by his father to go to another job to serve as a prince, which is doing service for his kingdom. And in the midst, he's wanting to go off and play with his friends, but in the midst of that, his real job is as a Shadow Fang. And the Shadow Fang is technically supposed to be a inheritance that he inherited with his bloodline, but he uses it to hunt down monsters and demons. He uses it to hunt down the occult and supernatural. And so you've got different setting changes. You've got different emotions being played with in that particular curation. But you've talked a little bit about Iris, and you've talked a little bit about some of these other characters in relation to like the government of the world. Since we were talking about Speaker of the House, what is their role in their world versus the Speaker?
Oh wow. What is their
Dynamite!
role?
Boom!
What is their role versus like what the speaker's role would be?
Yes.
Donovan would be basically the Speaker of the House.
Okay.
Because he's kind of deciding what gets looked at and what doesn't. Iris would be basically the president without knowing that she's president. All right.
All right.
Because I guess she's the one that's going to be running for president, but she just doesn't know it yet because she is basically the creator in the flesh. Okay.
Yeah.
And so she's learning everything about who everybody is, what the world's about, and is going to go through a lot of changes physically, mentally, psychologically. Okay. So in the end, she's going to see the world differently. I mean, because again, she's already an outcast in the world because she's an intersex person that was abused when she was young.
Yeah.
And has taken on the occupation of a sex worker. Okay. So she has already this morbid view of the world, but yet she's tough and she just keeps going through the daily routines. And now she's come into this power where she can actually do something about the world. Okay.
Okay.
Donovan is kind of like, he's got this side that wants him to do things, this side that wants him to do things, and this side that wants him to do things. And he's just trying to follow the law. This is what is written. This is how we do things. I don't like doing this because I don't agree with it. It breaks the rules, but you're the boss, and I basically have no choice. So you put me in a position I don't want to be in, you know? And he's going to come into a role dynamic where he's actually going to become more assertive and take control because the people that are in power above him no longer hold the reins. Even though they still hold the position, they no longer hold the reins. So you have a lot of dynamic changes that start to take place as people in power lose their control and people that should be in power start to take power.
So in other words, what you're saying is that in relation to our government, you have one character who's kind of like a Democrat, and then you have another character who's kind of like a Republican, and they're going to be in this consistent tug of war. One's more lawful good, one's more chaotic.
Right. Well, and
which you've got sex
Iris
workers
is basically the independent. Iris will be more like the independent, the person in the middle. Okay. And as the characters start to develop, they all go more towards the middle and start working with each other. And then, of course, you have your extremists that, so that's more of where it's at, is pointing out the extremities and showing how people can work together, even though they may not even like each other,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Nice. No, I like that. I dig that. And when do you think you're going to have this whole thing finished? Like the first rendition of it, anyway.
2 months.
2 months.
2 months.
So we're talking like March-ish.
Yeah, March. I got to get on it. I have a potential book deal with it. I have to get it finished by March. So.
Oh, so you have to. You're like legally obligated to.
No. There's certain things that I can't reveal, but basically I've been given a deadline as to when I have to get it in if I want a shot with this person. And if I can get it in and it get put into another person's hands is essentially what's going to happen with the approval of the person that is doing it. I have a decent shot of my book being accepted. I mean, it's a good possibility. So I'm hoping.
Nice. Yeah, my novelist that I've been working on. I've been working on Snake in the Game, which is part of the Night Terror Rising arc, since January of last year. And from that time period to now, I've had a fourth child, I've moved, and I've had a bunch of chaotic changes and adjustments. And now I'm on part 3 finally of 5. At least that's the plan, 5. And it's going to be Peter, Trinity, Sam, Orion, and Violas. Now, the one I'm really looking forward to writing is Orion, because that's going to be the one with like, he's the everyman who is sucked into this giant like world of realms. And when I say realms, I'm also meaning dimensions. Like, we're going to be learning about like the multiverse. We're going to be learning about the cosmic. Like, the stories, the working title is Cosmic Belt. So we're working with the idea that even though he's the everyman, even though he's technically considered a clerk in our world, he's also a dream walker, and he like walks through dreams and dimensions, and like he ties everybody together really. And the interesting thing about him is that he would want to be Speaker of the House. He wouldn't want to just be in charge of just holding up bills and then asking people to vote for them or asking people to not vote for them, because he'd be like, all you guys do is fight over this bullshit. Like, come on. He'd just be like his friend would, Peter would be like, hey, can you help me out with my princely duties? And he'd be like, I'm out. I'm not. No politics. And then Peter would be like, wait, why not? He'd be like, dude, you're going to be sitting in a room with a bunch of people who have a bunch of sticks up their asses, and I'd much rather just be smoking or be like hanging out with my brother at the convenience store, or I'm going to end up, trying to stop some other demon from ending the universe. So, and like that one squid or thing you fought the other day while trying to plunge a toilet, well, that thing's coming after us again. Wait, how is it coming after us again? I thought I killed it. It's like, you thought you killed it. So like, it's going to be different. There's going to be some interesting changes there. But that's the thing about me, is I'm writing like cross between Game of Thrones, Neil Gaiman, and a bit of Percy Jackson. Like, we're dealing with gods, we're dealing with pantheons, the other night, I was walking to the gas station and I was looking up because I wanted to see, because I'm like writing a chapter and I'm like, every time I write a chapter where a character is opening up a portal, a damn squid appears. I need to start using other monsters. And so I went in on the YouTube and I looked up Lovecraftian monsters, and I ended up going down this giant fucking rabbit hole where I'm learning about like the squid guy, learning about these bat-like creatures that like control dimensions and dreams, learning about this haggis guy who looks like he's like this squid werewolf dog thing. Like, there's like those different Lovecraftian monsters I've been learning about. And so I'm like going into like, and then I'm like watching that haunted show, the occult show that I was talking about before the show started, where it's called Sam and Colby, and they go to different haunted houses. So I've got all these different like weird influences going on my head, and like some of them try to equate it to a superhero show, and I'm like, superhero show? That would mean that these creatures are criminals somehow. They broke laws, but they really didn't. They're just going around trying to kill things. Kill things being people.
Wow. See, now if I were to compare Rainbow Prophecy to a combo of other movies, it would be like True Blood meeting the originals, meeting Diary of a Vampire, meeting Game of Thrones.
Nice polls there. Yeah, there's gonna be a lot of people in the comments. Or do we even have comments?
No, we didn't have no comments. Yeah. No, it's going to have humor. It's going to have some extreme seriousness to it. It's going to attack a lot of political issues that are apparent today, especially with discrimination, LGBTQIA community, racism, bigotry, political corruption, stuff like that. It's going to address these in a subtle way. I'm not going to make it like it's so in your face that that's yeah, all this guy is doing is talking about what we're doing here today. No, it's you got to look for it. It's not going to be like a I don't know if you know who Tyrone Magnus is. He does a lot of
Yes,
okay,
yes, I know who he
right,
is.
and he does a lot of
Bars.
he talks a lot about how Disney has done all this woke shit, and how it's interfering with storylines. And in some ways I agree, and in some ways I disagree. There needs to be certain recognitions, but if you have a storyline where historically it could not be a person of color or a person of this or a person of that, then don't make it that. You're taking away from historical accuracies, you know.
Yeah,
And yet, I love it when you have extreme diversity in, a storyline, because that's the way it should be. And my stepson and I just talked about this. You know, when you look at the world today, and Tyrone just brought this up, and this is why my stepson and I discussed this and all that. When you go out in the real world, okay, and you're having a meeting or you're going to an event or something like that, the majority of people that are at that event are kind of with the groups that they belong to, you know?
yeah,
So if I'm going to go to a drag show, okay, it's not going to be 90% of the population being straight white male cis. It's not going to happen because the community that it's representing is going to be 90% of who's there. So if
yeah.
you go to a monster truck show, who's going to be there? Cis male white. Okay.
For the most part, yeah.
Right. You're not going to have that kind of diversity. So when you turn around and you try to make it more, as Tyrone would say, or a lot of people in a political party might say, more woke, where you got all this multicultural diversity in the stands, that's not how the real world is. Okay. So when you're trying to make something into something that it's not, I agree that that's not the route that we should go. But I do agree that we should add more to it and make it more flavorful and more spicy, because that's what we need in the world. So that way, when you go to a monster truck show or you go to a drag show, there is a huge representation of everybody from everywhere at it. It shouldn't
Yeah.
be, you know. So again, this is something that I want to try to do in my book. I don't want my book to be just like so woke that it's going to turn people away from it, but I want it to be woke, you know.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I totally get it. You want it to be the Expires.
I want it to
X-Men
be
Empires.
I want it to be realistic in how we see the world today and what we need to do to change it.
Yes. Yes, that is the underlying idea. Yes, that's what the X-Men were trying to do back then. That's at least that's my interpretation of that, is that Stan Lee wrote these very diverse characters who were very different from each other, and it was essentially a gay fable. Like it was, these characters who were different from society, and they were being ostracized. And
Right.
then Bryan Singer himself took and made the X-Men movies, a or a fable about morality in a world where these mutants who are different from the rest of the world are trying to be themselves, learn what that means, and then in doing so help change the world in a positive way. And there happened to be some sort of flavor of undertone of gayness or whatever, LGBTness, and
Right.
people who were different. And you know I like the fact that you're going there, because of the fact that it's opening up that door for not difficult conversation, but progressive conversation in
Yes.
which
Yes.
you are working for a way forward that is different than typical. Like, because we already have like a lot of that going on right now with LGBT and adding symbols as the long string gets longer and it looks like a giant password. But like at the same time, you know, people are multi-flavored. People have different, things to them. Everyone has a dynamic difference to them. Even me, who I guess you would consider me cis white or whatever. And but like I myself recognize people who are different, and I don't see them that way. I don't see them that way. I just see them as uniquely them. And I like the fact that you're wanting to go there. Your main character is going to be a sex worker, for fuck's sake. Like that in itself is a thing.
Right. With fire red hair,
Sex worker turned hero.
with fire red hair and olive skin.
Yes.
Okay. Which olive skin can be interpreted as a multitude of different regions and stuff like that. Okay. Multitude of
Makes sense as fuck.
And this is what I'm doing is I'm leaving some things up to open to interpretation, but I'm also, bringing in a lot of other aspects where people that don't get recognized for things need recognition, So, yeah, yeah, I'm going to attack it in a different way, So,
I mean, if you look at my series, like when you break it down, it's not that much different because of the fact that I myself am not putting a microscope on the progressiveness or putting a lens like a hyper fixated lens on it. But if you really broke down the thing, you got Peter, who's the most cis, and then you got Trinity, who's female, and then you got Sam, who's multiracial, then you got Orion, who's also multiracial, and then it ends on Violet, who is also cis, but is different in his own way, and they all are like a very convoluted bucket of weirdness and uniqueness. And then I'm going to be adding more narrators later on, like Peter's twin brother, Chris, for instance, he's pan and like he's neither one way or the other. He's pan. He's like Deadpool. And then you've got like all these other characters who are going to be different from each other. Hell, there's a chapter in part 2 that I thought was really weird and interesting because of the fact that they're playing spin the bottle, and I was like writing it. I got to that part, and like I was like, and then nowhere, Trinity has like this not lesbian moment, but she's got like this pan moment, and uh, and it's like I asked my wife, I was like, is this like weird that like in one scene you have a cis type thing going on between male and female, and then almost in the same breath, then you have female on female, and like it's like that moment, and like people in the writing world, the writing community that I've been seeing anyway on Twitter, there's like this giant thing between whether you're writing gay romance or straight romance, and I'm like, why don't you just make it a clusterfuck? Throw dynamite and blow it up, and like make it
yeah.
everything.
Right. Well, that's where mine is. Mine is going to have a little bit of everything in it. Again, my main character is intersex. And the people that are in there. See, what you got to realize is that a lot of people want to believe that there's only two sexes, that there's only two genders, that there's only this, that there's only that, when the reality is that there's a multitude and a variety of a lot of things. And there's a lot of people that are still in the closet. They don't want to come out with who they are and what they do. I myself, who has always been a pansexual, which again in my younger days I really didn't even know what I was because of I just simply
Normality.
I thought I was bisexual, and I kept that hidden. I stayed in the closet because I didn't want to face the scrutiny and the criticism and all that. And Now it's like, oh, fuck it, I don't care who knows. You know,
Yeah.
it's who I am. It's, you know, and I know that there's a lot more people out there that are like that because and as through my lifetime, there's a lot of people that I thought were one way or another and turned out to be, oh wow, okay, because people keep things hidden, you know. So, and then you got people that they look at people and they make assumptions, you know. You look at me and you think cis white straight male. That's what most people think when they see me. And the reality is that, well, if you go on my father's side, there's German, there's Sicilian, there's Irish. You go on my mother's side, there's French, there's German, there's Nigerian, there's God, like three or four other things in there. Okay, I'm a multitude of things. All right. So this goes back to then like Jane Goodall. There's only one race, the human race. And I have quit identifying as a color, but more of a being now. So if I fill anything out and it asks me about race, I'm writing in human.
I mean, yeah. I think you're a mutt. Like that's what it comes down to. You're a pan mutt, and that's one of the great things about you is that I never thought of you as just straight white male. I just thought you were Paul, and then you
Yes.
revealed that you were a pan, and then you revealed that you were a mutt, and I'm like, oh, okay, cool. You're a panty mutt.
Yeah, and I'm an atheist. I've been all of the religions. I mean, I've studied them, I've researched them, and this is why I'm an atheist because I don't believe in any of them. But you know, because I have studied and I have read like the Bible multitude of times. I've read the Quran. I have read the Torah. I've read books on Buddhism, Hinduism, Taoism. One of the books on my shelf right back here is right there, Siddhartha. Okay.
Okay.
A lot of these different things when you check into it, and this is what helps me with my writing. And again, the things that we're talking about in relation to setting, narration, emotions, and how this all affects. If you're someone that's coming from one perspective in life and you haven't read and you haven't experienced and you haven't done these things, your vision is kind of narrow. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, excuse me. Um, Myself, I've experienced a lot of things in life. Some good, some bad, some, you know, I've been through some things, I've lived through some things. I bring all of that to the table when I write. I bring all of that to the table when I write. Writing a paper in high school and doing a family tree and writing a paper on it, and everything on my grandfather's side is like, well, where'd my grandfather come from? We don't talk about that. I'm doing a family tree. Well, we don't talk about that. Well, come to find out that finally, in doing some snooping and finding a birth certificate, I was able to question my grandfather on some things and I got some answers, you know?
Nice.
And it's really, really amazing in this world at how many people hide things, how many people don't want to disclose things, how many people are afraid. Well, why are people afraid? Look what society does to make people afraid. This all goes into the writing.
Hmm.
This is why my character is so in depth and so, wanting to change things and make things better, and so sick and tired of abuse and men controlling this and blah blah blah. That goes into the setting, that goes into the wokeness, that goes into the diversity, that goes into all the things that we need to improve upon in this world so that everybody can start loving each other. And I just I there's too many people that want to hate, based upon ignorant bullshit instead of looking things up, researching, and getting a better understanding. You know, anyone that hates someone because of a religious belief, a cultural belief, a color, gender, whatever the case may be, instead of hating on somebody because of whatever it is that you want to hate on them for, how about you just get to know them?
Yep,
Learn, understand
exactly.
them. And maybe you might learn something along the way and become a better person for it. You know?
Yeah. I mean, I when I listened to you narrate Iris and a couple of the other characters, I think it was like a year ago actually. It's like January-ish last year. And you were like reading off a couple of the chapters from the story. And recently, like when I say recently, I'm meaning like November. Like I was writing one of those chapters. I was writing a spin the bottle scene actually. It was fucking 5 in the morning, and I'm like writing it, and then a voice in the back of my head that was named Paul was like talking while I'm like sitting there writing up the scene, and it was like something you'd said on a podcast recently in one of our episodes, and it was something about talking about gender normality and norms and shit. And how, like, in the same breath, you could change something a certain way. And so, suddenly, out of nowhere, I'm having Peter and Trinity have their spin the bottle scene, but then I'm also having Destin and Trinity have their moment. And I'm like, did I just write some band romance thing? And I'm like, I think I just did. And then and it was enabled by the fact that you were writing about Iris, this sex worker character, and like these other characters and how they would just flex and change based on their setting or scenario they were in. And I thought it was pretty awesome that you were doing that because it enabled my thought process because I'm in Utah. And so my reality is that I live in a culture in which everything's overwhelmingly white, yes, but it's also diverse in its own way. But it's in a world where if I voice my diverse thoughts, or if I voice my, you know, my progressive mentality with my centrality, I get backlash or I get people clashing with it. And so it's not as easy to go around and be like, it's fine with people being pan or it's fine with people being whatever. Because somebody out there will be like, don't you just being gay? And like, they'll have like their own thoughts on it. And so it comes down to that narrative bias or that selective bias where people have this bias towards what they think it is versus what it might actually be. And, that comes into the setting. It comes into talking about what world you're in, what reality your reality is, whether it's suffocating or whether it's easygoing and nice or whether it's warm or cold, and informing what you're allowed to open up about. Because you talked about how people hide things. And so that it plays into setting, plays into character change, plays into if I change from Trinity's perspective to Orion's perspective, I'm no longer a identifying female person who's more feminine, so therefore my plot will be more masculine by principle. But what if Orion is half and half? What if he has a duality? What if he's got some feminine qualities but some masculine qualities? With Vilas, he's going to punch his way through something, so he's going to be, inherently masculine. But by that point, I'll have already written Sam, who's very feminine, but I was also very masculine in her own way, in which she's angry, she's loud, she's brash. To some people she'd come off as lesbian, but really she's just herself. And, she's trying to have this romance with her human friend while her fairy grandmother absolutely cannot hate humans or cannot stand humans and thinks of them as slaves. And like you got these other different characters and their mentalities and what perspectives they have, which ties into what you're talking about.
Right. And that's one of the other things that I'm trying to break also. It's going to be really, really difficult. People have this imagery and you just did it yourself and all that. If you're a woman and you're angry and you break through things, people are going to think of you as a lesbian because you're exhibiting male masculine qualities, which is so untrue.
I got told that. I was reading a part of from Sam, and someone told me that, and I'm like, "But is she really?"
Well, there's people that are going to think that way because they associate that if a woman acts that way, well, then she must be a lesbian. Well, which is completely ridiculous because what you're saying is all men are angry and put their fist through walls and are like that. I'm not like that. So does that make me more woman-like then? No, no. I mean, when we start categorizing emotions as male and female, that creates a problem. Just like men don't cry. My wife
Oh, I get
passed
told that a lot by my
almost a
father-in-law. Oh
year
my
ago.
God.
Okay. January 22nd of last year, my wife passed away. And there hasn't been almost a whole day that I've gone without crying at some point, or at least having tears come in my eyes, simply because something will remind me of her and it will bring a tear to my eye. Okay. When I feel a cry coming on, I let it happen. That doesn't make me weak. That doesn't make me effeminate. That makes me someone accepting of my emotions as a human being. I am a human being. I cry.
Exactly.
Okay, I have tear ducts. If I wasn't supposed to cry, then the almighty creator, or whoever it is that you want to believe in, that made human beings the way that they are made, would not have given me tear ducts to allow tears to run down my face.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's not about masculinity or effeminacy, in relation to crying or whatever else it is that you want to associate as male and female, whatever. People are
Right.
people. And there's some people that can hold back their anger. There's other people that express their anger. There's people that will lash out. There's people that won't lash out. It's not about male and female. It's about being a human and your culturalization, determinism, and how things have made you who you are, what you are, and what you strive to be. All these different things have an effect on you. And if you're brought up and you're told that boys don't cry, then you're going to be someone that's going to probably grow up holding back your emotions, as I used to be, someone that would hold my emotions back and not shed a tear, because if I do, I'm weak and I can't let people think I'm weak. What ignorance I had, along with most other people. Most other people have this kind of ignorance. And I write about this in my writings. I bring these things up because these expressions, these categorizations that people give people based upon emotional behaviors, I want to change that. I don't want people to be judging people that they're strong or weak based upon how they emotionally react to things. And this goes along with stoicism. Okay. For those that don't know him, Stoic Bryce on Twitter, you need to follow him. He does these stoic workshops and really talks about, he goes back to Marcus Aurelius. I've talked about this before. These issues that they talked about 1,000, 2,000 years ago, we still talk about today. Nothing has changed. We still have these issues. Why haven't we changed? Because we want to control and manipulate people. And as long as we want to control and manipulate people and make them who we want them to be versus allowing them to be who they are, we're going to continue to have these stereotypes. So I put this in my book. I point this stuff out in my writings.
I'm hoping it changes that with Sam. Like, I hope that someone who reads Sam as a character learns that they don't have to be characterized as lesbian or whatever in order to be loud, in order to be brash, in order to be proud of, their own voice, in order to, because that's part of her story is she's Peter's cousin, right? So she's in our world, like marketing wise, people are going to see Peter as the traditional white male, and they're going to see her as a traditional either mixed race or traditionally black or whatever. And I'm not writing her like that. I'm writing her as a fae, demon fae, who happens to have qualities racially like a mixed race person. And so she gets underestimated. She gets, undermined. Like her grandmother is whiter than she is. So there's going to be some undermining going on. She's also not a pure fae. So there's going to be a bit of more of that pure blood mentality going on. And
all you have
I
to
am
do is
hoping.
all you have to do is have a scene where someone comes up and says, "So, are you a lesbian?" Is that why you act that way or something like that? And have her turn around and go, no, not like it's a bad thing, but no, you've mischaracterized me. Why? Because of what? What makes you think I'm that? And then have her explain that, no, I am who I am, blah, blah, blah. And, explain away the characterization as a complete misjudgment, and not that she sees anything wrong with it, but that's not who I am, type of thing.
That's fair. Yeah. Yeah, I could try and do that sort of thing. I would do it like a more subtle way, but like she's not being subtle, but the scene is subtle. That way, like I don't heavy hand it. But like I could have it to where like let's say somebody that's in Skya is talking. Peter himself would be there because he's her cousin, and they're talking to her dad, who's his uncle, and like they have like the whole thing, and they're all communicating as people. And in the scene, like someone asks her, like, "Are you this or whatever?" Like, confronts her about the fact of how brash she's being or whatever, how outward she was in court, for instance, and she'll be like, "No, I'm just me. I'm just Sam." And like in the process, she's also dealing with the wrestling of her emotions in her head and dealing with the fact that her grandmother was trying to undermine her that day, obsessing over whether or not her mother and her grandmother are supporting her or against her, and like just some stuff that I like your idea, I like what you're talking about there, because then it'll help break this. I don't know if it'll break the stereotype or change the game, but it will definitely help influence people from stop judgmenting somebody who happens to be feminine or happens to be female, and because we talked gender normality a few episodes back, and like someone who identifies as female, like it'll help break that stereotype that not all females can be females. Like they can be loud, they can be quiet, they can be reserved. Sam isn't going to be one character who just does one thing. Like she's going to have moments where she's quiet because she's calculating or she's trying to figure out what she should do in a scene. Because, like I said, it's going to be a bit political in some areas. She's a princess. There's going to be some thriller going on. There's going to be a question of consent or non-consent. There's going to be, different flavors going on in which we're asked several times, like, what would you do in a scene? Or this is Sam's version of the who am I? This is Sam's version of figuring out her identity.
Right. The good thing about having these kind of scenes is that when someone's reading it and they come upon it, if they have a certain mind thought and it's presented in the right way, it's going to do one of two things. It's going to be, okay, this is shit. This don't happen in the real world. And they're just going to go on. Or they're going to be like, wow, I never thought about it that way. I wonder if that holds true. It'll get them to thinking. And if you can get someone to start thinking in a new way, in a different way, in a different line, you start to open their mind up. And once you can open their mind up to one thing, then the possibilities of their mind opening up to a lot of other things is huge. And the one thing that I've seen is that it doesn't matter how good or how bad a person is. Everybody is capable of change. Everybody is. Whether it's good change or bad change. I've seen good people go bad. I've seen bad people turn good. I've seen people that were racist and bigots become educated. I've seen people that weren't racists become racist because they got into a new line of work and they were judgmental because of one person or the acts of a few, so that they judge a whole. And it's just like, wow. So people can change, and it's up to us as writers to help bring some of that change.
Yeah, and I'm hoping to, like, in my own work, I'm hoping to bring up the fact that, like, even though these characters are not technically human, the actions they do and the ways they react in the situation make them extremely human. Like they give them that humanity, that level of humanity that you can latch onto, and that you can identify with. Because I'm hoping that by writing Trinity's story, I'm hoping to identify with the females out there who deal with their own form of mental health, who deal with men coming onto them and chasing them like dogs. And then I'm hoping to help them deal with that struggle. And then with Sam, it's a familial thing. Like it's your family undermining you. It's your family who's supposed to you're supposed to be able to count on, and they're thwarting you at every turn. And your family's supposed to be a support system, and yet they're anything. They're basically a form of blood poison. And then you've got like that mental health thing going on that I was talking about. Like the story is going to be called Origin Delirium. So it's this state of dreamlike state in which you're in a state of dream and reality, and you're trying to figure out what your reality is. And so it's that idea that it's the origin of her figuring out the fact that both sides of her family deal with mental health, and they are not dealing with it the right way or dealing with it healthily. And so therefore it's going to spiral. There's going to be a spiral point in which, she's at a point where she's just like, wait a minute, my dad has been dealing with his by closing it off and becoming numb to it. And my mom has been suppressing it because of the fact that she doesn't want to look a certain way in court, or she doesn't want to, harm our family with their image. And so everyone's so damn obsessed with their image, they don't want to confront their issues. And which really speaks to kind of how I'm seeing media right now, with everyone and their talk of mental health and how they handle it. Like there are those of us that want to be able to find a way to heal ourselves. There are those of us who are trying to deal with it and tackle it. But the massive opposition we face is the dueling of duality when it comes to our image and how people see us as successful or not, and whether or not we're able to look in the mirror and see our own truth and able to express that truth healthily, not toxically. Because as you know, in politics, toxicity is a thing. And, they are arguing over who's going to be a speaker, and they're arguing over who's going to be this or who's going to be that, and what role they're going to hold. And it seems like they're more concentrated on their power than they are on the human rights of the individual. And it's a thing.
That's been one of my biggest issues. Again, a lot of people mistaken me for a liberal because I'm a humanitarian. All right. I hate both parties. Both parties are corrupt. Both parties are corporatized. They don't care about the human rights. They care about property rights. All right. So, with that being said, I am a humanitarian, and I believe that human rights come first and foremost. And I put that into my writing. My writing is going to show that. Now, when we started, one of the things that we were supposed to address, New Year's goals and
oh shit, that's right. We got so absorbed by the talk of setting and character and everything.
Handling the settings and the emotions and stuff like that, and we were handling the secondary things that we were going to talk about. So let's address, because we're running short on time, let's address New Year's goals and processes.
Okay. What are yours?
My New Year's goal in relation to writing and all of this, I want to do more shows per week. I just started up Comedy and Controversy with Jeremy Baker, and a friend of mine, Elizabeth, she's going to start up the Stoic Space with me, Becoming Stoic. So I'm going to have a Stoic show also, probably at the end of January. It's a little behind the schedule that I wanted, but I at one time wanted like 10 to 15 shows. It's hard to keep up with the ones that I have. And I think this next one that I add will be the last one that I add. I think Comedy and Controversy will probably end up being my more political one, where we get more into politics than anything else. Maybe down the road, I might open up one more thing that goes strictly into politics. Outside of that, I have to save room. What a lot of people don't realize is when they do videos, like right now, I use StreamYard. Okay. you only have 50 hours of storage time. So you have to upload, download, do all of this and get everything where you want it to be before you delete it from StreamYard, or you pay for more hours storage. And I'm not going to pay for more hours storage when I don't have to, because at the rate that I'm going, I'm going to end up paying like $500 a month for 1,000 hours of storage. Forget it. Eventually I got to delete them. So I'm going to delete now before it costs any money. I pay enough as it is. So my goal with the show is to expand it and make it more popular. My goal on social media is to make Twitter my main platform that I do most of my work on, and most of my because we have Twitter Spaces, so I can do a lot more social events, audio events. Then in relation to writing, I want to be able to write 2 books this year, maybe 3. I have to get this first one done. So the pressure is on me right now. I have a lot of stuff that I have to do in the next 2 months here. So for me, my goals for this year is to accomplish these first 2 months of things that I need to get done and get them done. And then from there, I'll just let things go. Because eventually I'm going to be making my, I got to start. I've already started the process, but I got to continue with the process to run for governor in 2026 here in California. So if I'm still going to do that, I got to get a lot of other things done prior to that, and then work up and then infiltrate that in this year. Because this is the year that I got to start going to where next year I can start working on setting up campaign stuff, so that I can be ready to go and get my name out there. And it would be nice to have a new book come out by the end of this year. It would be nice to have a book come out by the end of this year, which would gain me popularity going into the next year, that I can get things going a little bit faster.
Hell yeah.
That's where I'm at.
Nice. Yeah, so with me, it's publishing Snake in the Dame, publishing Storms of Blood, publishing Origin of Delirium. So getting all 3 of those out there in the world. By May, I want to have all 5 of the parts done. And during that time frame, I'm going to also be working on creating the audiobook versions of it and in that out there. I'm going to be using my YouTube channel to put up public source, like reading out from Hans Christian Andersen, reading out from quite a few older tales as old as time, and creating little audiobook narrations. And Teapot is going to be an audiobook narrator. Like I'm going to do some audiobook narration here and there, and as well as the shows, and as well as reality and everything. And eventually, I want to actually make a movie. I want to actually write a script and then shoot something and make a short film or something. Make a feature production. And so I've got some stuff that's cooking and working on that. And so I know my brother-in-law wants us to run for office for president or run for our own public office of some kind here in Utah. So we'll see how that goes. But I know that my major focus right now is on learning production and on the audio end of things, and then translating that to video, because I already did take a film class in high school and did some film classes in college and stuff like that. And so I want to try and utilize that, knowledge base that I have. I'm always trying to, advance my knowledge base. And so basically learning more about storytelling and using it, and putting out some books this year as well as some audiobooks. And maybe one day, maybe Paul will hit me up to do an audiobook narration, and then maybe me and Cornelia can team up on it. I don't know. But until then, I'll be practicing.
Yeah. Now, my first audiobook that I have done will be done by Cornelia, and that'll be my book that I already have published, The Red Herring Effect. So, but I got to get things situated before I can even do that, because I don't want to do an audio of it in the version that it is. I want to do a second edition of it. And hopefully, if I can get things going with this new publishing company, hopefully I can get a second edition with them, which would be huge. But then an audio book, yes, would definitely be contracted through Cornelia. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. And then of course,
Woot!
yes, it's Cornelia is my yes. She will be doing my oh yes. She will be doing the audiobook. Has the voice. She has the voice. I think Diana might be going into doing audiobooks. And if Diana does, oh my God, I can't wait to hire her for my Breathe story. Jesus Christ, Breathe. She would be so perfect for Breathe. But anyways, yes. I tell you, this is going to be a busy year. It's going to be a busy
Oh,
year.
it is. It is. I mean, my kid's going to be a year old in July. My oldest kid's going to be 8 years old in February. Every one of my children are going to be advancing a year in age. And I'm hoping that after I get done with doing the audiobook narrations and practicing with them, I'm hoping that one of them catches on interest to it. And I either put out a children's story this year because I was playing around with the idea of making like a Rainbow Friends version of Rainbow Friends and maybe doing like a children's story with my kid. And maybe I'll start having the kids participate in some of the artsy stuff.
Oh, nice, nice.
Carried on.
That would
Have
be
them can't have them hold the torch for a minute.
that would be awesome. Yeah, yeah. And maybe down the road, you never know. I might be able to throw a book in there or two for you and all that to do an audio book on. I don't know where I would have the time. A lot of people have said, Paul, you need to do your own audio book. At the beginning, yes, that was the intent, but with as busy as what I'm getting with everything, it's there's just not enough hours in the day to get everything done now. There's way too much stuff, way too much stuff. And if I'm going to
Oh,
get
it
my
all stacks up.
yes, yes, and if I'm going to get my writing in there, oh my God. And that's the one spot I'm really lacking right now is having the time to get my writing in there. I'm just now getting caught up on getting my hours reduced. And obviously, I was going about it the wrong way. I was trying to do like, because it takes so long to download and then upload and then get it to the right places. So each segment that I have takes about an hour to an hour and a half, okay, for one video because I got to download audio and video and then upload to like Anchor and Spotify, and then I got to do Google Drive and send it out to people and all that. And there's a lot of them. I mean, I haven't sent any out to you yet. I mean, that's how far behind I am. I need to start getting all of those out. So then that takes more time to do the Google Drives and get those out. But
Yep.
now again, if I was more experienced at it, I'm sure somebody with more experience would have a way that they could do it a lot faster than what I am. But anyways, once I can get before I was trying to do 4 and 5 in a day, and I realized I only do one video a day. So if I do 2 videos for downloading and uploading in a day, which will take probably 3 to 4 hours of my day, I can then designate the rest of my day to my writing, you know?
That
So,
is true.
yeah. So that will make things easier there. And
What you
then
could do is you could download the video, and while you're downloading it in the background, right.
I can't. I can't because now I'm not concentrating on my writing. I'm waiting for things to get done and trying to remember how to do things. This is the other thing. When you start getting old, you start forgetting things. And I have gotten up to make myself something to eat while I've been downloading. And then I'll come back and I'll start working on the downloading. And it's like I'll go back and it's just like, oh shit, I put those hot dogs in the microwave 2 hours ago. Damn.
Oh,
So it's like I have to stay focused. I'm just a decade ago I could have multitasked, so much better. And I can't do it as well as what I used to. It's just the way it is.
it is what it is. You need an assistant.
Yeah. Eventually. Never know. Anyways. Awesome show today, T Paul.
Oh yeah.
What further goals do you have?
That's just better work-life balance and being able to get things done faster this year. Because last year was so crammed with life changes in real life that a lot
Yeah.
of times I would disappear for a while, and then people would be like, "What have you been up to?" And be like, "Real life." And then like I'd come back and finally have something to share that I did or whatever. And I was just so busy with real life with the kid and with everything going on with her pregnancy and trying to be there for her and supportive of her and everything. Took a
Yeah.
lot of mental concentration. So this year it's going to be working on the juggling, working on better balance, and getting a bit more done. That's pretty much it. And then being happy with it. That's another big key.
Yep. Yep. Nah, I know. Tomorrow's my wife's birthday. And
Oof.
this once I can get past tomorrow, I think I'm going to be okay. It's been really tough coming up on this day. It's just really, really tough. But I think I can do it. I think I can do it. And
You got this.
I think come Sunday, I think I'm going to wake up afresh, and hopefully I'm going to be able to move forward a lot better. It's just it's been playing on me, So I'm hoping that I'm hoping that I can work myself into a different way of thinking, and that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, mentality. Yeah, just think about this. She would be so proud of you with all the stuff you've done already.
Oh,
With all
I
the stuff you've done in the last year, she would be so fucking proud of you. Like, she'd be giving you a hug and a kiss and telling you how much she loves you. And she probably already is. She's probably doing that right now while we're talking. So,
probably probably so. All right. All right, everybody. Thank you. And remember, be kind, be happy, and may good things come your way.
whoop, whoop. Have a week.
Yeah.